guys, what is going on? Blossom is back and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, I've been ranting a lot on my YouTube channel, and although I know a lot of people find it really funny to see me rant, and I do enjoy doing it, I do feel that a lot of my videos have been getting a lot more negative around the game. And so because of that, today's video is going to be a little bit more positive. I want to be talking about the immortalized in carbon fiber, and instead of talking about, oh, this thing is absolute garbage, which it is, what could I do to make it better? Now, I know I can make this back better, but what could Hudge do? Like, are they going to take notes about this video or are they going to ignore it? That's up to them. But in today's video, I want to tell you on what I can do to make the pack better. Now, I think it is fair to agree that I think most of us, or at least the majority of us, will think that this is a pretty bad pack, and we have seen a lot of very mediocre to horrendous packs in, you know, the 5 years of playing Top Drives, but it seems like they seem to get worse and worse. Like, the level of bad seems to just get worse and worse. So today I want to fix this pack. I want to revamp it and make it a lot more enticing, especially from a monetization standpoint, to make it seem where the pack is a lot more buyable and a lot more desirable just in general. So let's get into it. So the first thing that we need to realize is everything that you see here in this photo is what you can get from the actual, or not horror show, but basically it's the same thing, from the actual immortalizing carbon pack that's in the store right now. Everything but that Mura SVJ. That Mura SVJ, he's here for vibes. It's just good vibes, okay? So first things first, why do I think that this is just a really sad car pull? First of all, I don't think that this challenge really this pack really services the challenge, nor does it really service the player, right? In terms of servicing the player, the pack would probably have to have a lot of good cars, a lot of desirable cars where a lot of people would want to collect and max. And in terms of servicing the challenge, you would want a really versatile pool of cars. I mean, Hutch and Top Drives is this game that kind of prides itself on its versatility and how many cars it has in the game, and yet you release a car pool like this where literally almost everything is the same. Let me tell you why. In this entire pack, you only unpack one all-surface tire car. There are two in total if you count prize cars, but I'm not in this. But if you want to know if there are two prize cars in total, two all-surface tire cars in total if you count prize cars, but only one all-surface tire car, being the Mini JCW All-4, which means it's a lose-lose situation having one all-surface tire car, because if you do an all-surface tire or off-road track set, then, well, not really off-road, but let's say motocross, because there are still off-road tire cars in here, so let's say motocross, then players are not going to have fun, because the only car that's going to clear the motocross from this challenge, at least Ultra and above, is the Countryman. So first of all, that's an epic that not a lot of people want to max, not a lot of people like. At the end of the day, it's a Mini Cooper. Who the hell freaking cares, right? So that's not really fun. And then at the same time, okay, maybe Hudge would be like, since there's only one all-surface tire car, or one car that's only eligible for the motocross, then we're just not gonna put the motocross in the challenge. That limits Hudge, and it makes the challenge less interesting because that's one less track set that the company can utilize. You know what I mean? So it's a lose-lose having one all-surface tire. And the same thing with off-road, really. There's only two off-road tire cars, but that's not too bad. The Prototipo and the Atom are great cars. They're highly sought out for, and they're relatively easy to unpack. Many people might have them already, so that's a little bit better because they are good cars, so their reputation precedes them. Next thing is standard tires. They're zero standard tires. Nothing. For a game that prides itself on versatility, they're doing a really bad job at it. Like, there's no standard tire representation here, but I can understand why, because if they added standard tires and they added rain into the challenge, all the four-wheel drive cars they would have added would become redundant. So cars like the Lamborghinis, for example, would immediately become useless. So I can understand why. Okay, so for the no standard tire part, I'll continue talking about this later when I talk about my improvement, because the fact that there are no standard tires is is a hindrance, but can also be a challenge to make four-wheel drive cars more useful. But then again, you look at this collection, there are no four-wheel drive ultra rares. So even if there was rain, like what? Like you want us to use four-wheel drive, you make four-wheel drive cars more expensive in RQ because you understand that four-wheel drive cars have that versatility of wet and dry. Then you make a challenge like this where there are no center tire cars. If you put wet in the challenge, but you have no four-wheel drive cars, and those four-wheel drives or that drivetrain will not be highlighted. It won't be appreciated because you can't even use it here. I know there are a couple four-wheel drive epics like the Ghibli and the Cooper. Okay, that's fine, but there is opportunity to add more four-wheel drives into this challenge if you want to annex standard tire cars. Also, only one high ground clearance car in terms of, non-prize. If you include prize cars, there are two high ground clearance cars. And then here's the big thing. With the epics, there is no RQ 66, 68, 69, 72, 73, 74, no 75. There are 75s if you count prize cars, but you can't unpack a 75 and 77. So another bad thing, like there's no versatility, there's no, so many RQs are being underrepresented here. And of course, when it comes to the legendaries, only 70%, I mean not only, but 70% of the legendaries are four-wheel drive. So once again, if they make a bunch of wet, track sets, then obviously having no center tire cars, these Lamborghinis are going to be useful, but at what cost? You're not going to have, to the player's standpoint, it's not going to be fun, going for these Lamborghinis, because we all know, that these Lamborghinis are going to be useless outside of the challenge. More things that I think are, just really bad design. Honestly, whoever designed this, you did a bad job. Straight up, you did a bad job. I can do a better job than you can. But here's the other thing. 21 non-prize ultra rares, but only 8 unique brands. 21 ultra rares, but only 8 unique brands. That is sad. Next up, 9 of which are Morgans, which honestly I think is just really sad. Morgan is not a WoW brand. When you are, strategizing and knowing your game like Top Drives, you need to know your WoW brands, what I like to call your headliner brands. You cannot let obscurity headline. That's what I mean. The thing is, let me put this in a soccer standpoint or a music standpoint, okay? Morgan is not Kanye West. Morgan is not Taylor Swift. Morgan is not Coldplay. Morgan is something more obscure. I can't even think of an obscure brand because my music taste is very basic. I wouldn't even say the Strokes because that would be like an insult to the Strokes. The Strokes are pretty cool. But you can say Morgan is Foster the People. There you go. Or Gautier. Gautier, remember those people? The people that made Somebody That I Used to Know one song and you never heard of them again? That's what Morgan is. Yes, they have a following, but it's not a big following. And in this tag, I can see that there are 2 headliner brands. It's Lamborghini, which is a big brand but has a bad reputation in the game, and Morgan, which is a small brand and doesn't have a good reputation in the game either. So that's, from a standpoint, it's just really, really bad. You cannot let obscurity headline a tag. You need a big brand that people know, that people like to headline a brand. Something like Chevrolet, something like Dodge or Porsche. Now, we can't really do Porsche for this because Porsche already headlined Electric Excellence. A lot of cars from Electric Excellence were Porsche. You want those big brands, or just something like Pagani or Koenigsegg, where a lot of people just love and know. You cannot do Morgan. It's like saying that, going to Coachella, but the headliner for Coachella is Koch. Yeah, how many of you people know Koch? You know what I mean? It's like going to the Classica, right? But Thomas Müller is not playing. It's like going to El Clasico, but Messi is not. I know Messi's not at Barcelona anymore, but he might be going back. But let's say back in the day, you go to El Clasico and you realize that Messi and Ronaldo are on the bench. Who wants to see? I don't even know who else played for Real Madrid. Like Isco? You want Isco to headline? Rakitic is still a pretty big player. I can't even think of any small player that played for Barcelona because I'm not a Barcelona fan, so I don't really know. It's like saying, okay, I'm a Bayern fan, right? So let's say instead of having Thomas Müller or back in the day Robert Lewandowski, Ribéry, Robben, instead of having those guys, imagine you have a starting lineup and the people in the front is literally like Juan Bernat, Dante. No, just no, absolutely not. what's his name? Sandro Wagner. No, you cannot have Morgan headline a brand. Also, it's a very redundant lineup. Like I said, so many Morgans, too many Lamborghinis in my opinion. 10 non-prize legends and only 3 brands among them. That's just sad. No medium ground clearance is just very, very sad. So, in my opinion, how could we improve the pack? Now that we have notified or now that we have identified what the issues are, it's time to get cutting. What I would do, I'd take away a lot of Morgans. I would keep some of them. I'm still keeping 4 Morgans. I'm taking 5 away. I'm taking away 4, okay? I'm taking away 5. Sorry, I'm taking away 5. I'm keeping 4. I'm taking away some of the Lamborghinis, okay? I'm taking away some of the Epics. I'm taking away the Gallardo Epic. I'm getting rid of the Aero Coupe Epic, the Morgan Aero 8. Because the other thing that we need to talk about is not even the question of headliner brands, big brands, small brands. You need to find a balance of good cars that people want to unpack and bad cars that nobody wants to unpack. This pack has too many cars that nobody wants to unpack. So what I'm doing here is just getting rid of some really shitty cars like the Aero 8, the Gallardos, the Aero Coupe. All of these cars nobody want to upgrade, nobody want to unpack. There's still some pretty bad cars here that I am keeping, like the Morgan Aero 8 series, well, basically all the Morgans, and some of the Gallardos I'm keeping around as well. Okay, so now we know what cars I want to get rid of. Now let's think about other cars that could have been added. Immortalizing Carbon meant, cars or brands named after their owners or people, right? So who could they have, what other brands could they have added? Chevrolet, Louis Chevrolet, Dodge, the Dodge brothers, Mercedes, Aston, TVR, Lincoln, Citroen, Ford, Peugeot. Now the different colors here, so what do they mean? Okay, the ones that are highlighted in red, Dodge, TVR, Peugeot, Bentley, I think that they've already had recent events and tags where they were very important in. For example, Dodge with the entire, Pacific Coast. We've seen a lot of Dodge recently. I've not, because I've not unpacked any of them. TVR was, I think, pretty prominent in the Great Outdoors, so we don't need to add them. Peugeot was pretty prominent in Electric Excellence. I saw a lot of the Peugeot E-Legend. Bentley, I just see Bentley absolutely everywhere. I don't need to see more of Bentley. So that leaves us with Chevrolet, Mercedes, Aston, Lincoln, Citroen, Buick, Ford, and Honda. These were brands that they could have added to Immortalizing Carbon, which they did not do. Now, the ones highlighted in yellow, Aston Martin, Mercedes-Benz, Chevrolet, and Ford, these are what I think are the headliner brands. These are brands that are big enough that can get people going, that can get people interested in opening packs. Ford, Aston, Mercedes, and Chevrolet. But not only that, on top of that, these are big brands in the game with a lot of cars, and they have a lot of cars and models to provide for this tag, right? So Chevrolet, Mercedes, Ford, and Aston Martin. And then some other ones that they could have added are Buick and Citroen, Honda, Lincoln, that they could have sprinkled here and there. So in my opinion, how did I make it better? Well, first of all, I kept Lamborghini as a headliner for the Legendaries. I added more Lambo Legends. But I also added Mercedes-Benz and Aston. So I'm going to make this, my Blossom version of the Immortalized Carbon adds a lot more Mercedes, adds a lot more Aston Martin, okay? So this is my version of Immortalizing Carbons. I took out the cars that I said I would take out, and I added in a lot more. So let me show you what I added in. First of all, I want to service the challenge. You got to find a balance of servicing the challenge and servicing the player. Like I said, servicing the player is adding cars that people want. Servicing the challenge is adding more ways where the challenge can be more unique. Add more track sets, add, motocross, add gravel, things where off-road tires will not be dominant in. You got to know where to use your all-surface tire cars. Just because you add dirt doesn't mean that adding a bunch of all-surface tire cars is going to add versatility. No one's going to use that. And people are just going to use off-road tire cars anyway because they are better. So you need to add all-surface tire cars, and then you need to service the challenge by adding track sets where all-surface tire cars will excel over off-road tire cars. So motocross, gravel, mixed track sets of asphalt and dirt, where the asphalt sections are also in the rain, in the wet, where off-road tire cars would be weaker in. So what I'm doing here is I'm servicing the challenge first. I'm adding all surface tire representation. There are no all surface tire cars in the challenge right now, so I'm adding cars from those brands where I felt could be represented in Immortalizing Carbon. Fords, Lincolns, Mercedes-Benz, Honda. So all of these cars I'm adding in. Now the Lincolns is kind of like a win-win. These are new cars that people maybe want to unpack, or people have already unpacked from opening Elite offers and they want to use. To my knowledge, cars like the Lincoln MKT, the Corsair, the Navigator, all these cars have not had their chance to shine. This could have been a challenge where they could have shone in. Same thing for the Ranger and the Maverick as well. Then bringing back some old school cars like the Honda Pilot that has been in the game since the start, the AMG G63 as well, okay? Now, moving on to the other Ultras that I'm adding. Now, I added this in categories. The first row are saloons. I realized that we could do something with saloons here. That once again, servicing the challenge. They could do a challenge where you have to use saloons. You got those quadrifoglios, right? Those are saloons. You have the Ghibli, that's a saloon. So I'm adding more saloons here, like the Mercedes AMG S65s and the E55 AMG, the W211 as well. W212, W211, yeah, one and the other, right? So I'm adding those, right? And then also, you know, we could work with convertibles. So I'm adding the SL500, the SLC43, the Elise. I am adding a lot of Mercs. Like I said, I'm going to make this Mercedes heavy. I want Mercedes and Lamborghini to be the main headliners instead of Lamborghini and Morgan, because nobody gives a damn about Morgan unless you're like 1% of the population, okay? I'm adding Ford Focus ST, OG car, Honda NSX, OG car. They all add to just, you know, giving more life and versatility into the challenge. I think a lot of us can agree that I think we would want to unpack cars like the Honda NSX, cars like the Mercedes SL500, and then the Lotus Elise. I think I'm adding this because a lot of players have this already. So I'm adding the Elise kind of like thinking about the newer player in mind. You know, as long as you play the challenge, you will have at least one ultra rare for this challenge, right? And it's a good card to use as well. I'm also adding a Morgan +4. Instead of adding all the crappy Morgans, I'm actually adding a decent Morgan. That is actually an okay Morgan. Pretty good in my opinion. So that would make the pack a lot more enticing. Now, on top of this, now let's talk about the epics. First of all, servicing the challenge once again. More or all surface tire and more off-road representation. I'm adding the new cars, the Ranger Tremor and the Maverick Tremor. So not the Chevrolet Colorado. Now, one thing I decided not to do was not add Chevrolet. Chevrolet was an option, but in the end, I had two routes that I could follow. I could either have Lamborghini and Mercedes headline. You don't want too many brands to headline because that would be too big of a pack. So in my opinion. So I went for Mercedes and Lambo to headline. I could have gone Mercedes and Lambo or Chevrolet and Lambo. I went Mercedes and Lambo. We can use the Chevrolets in a different challenge next time, right? So once again, adding two more Mercs, all surface tire representation, the ML63 and the GLS63. Now, I know some people out there, maybe just me to be honest, but I do genuinely really want the GLS 63. Handles pretty well for a 74 RQ car. Then again, I'm adding more saloons. Again, they are Mercedes to add on to that epics, right? Because right now we have those quadrifoglios, we have those Ghiblis. So I'm adding on the W212 E63s. So hopefully those will help as well. And on top of that, I'm adding another convertible in the AMG S63. And the AMG S63 Cabriolet, I believe, is an epic that a lot of people will want. I want it too. It got a massive buff. So that not only services the challenge, but that also services the player, because a lot of people would want to unpack that AMG. Now, on top of this, now we're talking about servicing the player. Now we're just adding cars that people want to unpack. Now we need to make the pack enticing. We've chosen cars that will help the challenge. Now we choose cars that will help the people. Make people feel happy when they open the pack. Give them a chance at something that they want. So these are really good performance tire cars or slick tire cars, in my opinion. Once again, I'm also, as much as I hate Morgan, I'm helping Morgan as a brand in the game by adding the GTR to this pack. People want this car because it is good. I'm also adding some Aston Martins in here as well, because like I said, this could have been a brand that could have headlined, but then again, Aston Martin has a lot of shitty Ultras that I did not want to add, because, you know, like I said, I don't want the challenge to be redundant. So Vantage RS, and the Vanquish S. I think those are four very enticing epics that I could have added to the pool. Once again, now we talk about Legendaries. Once again, servicing the player. We're adding Legendaries that for the most part people will want. I think the only thing that people wouldn't be happy about unpacking is that SLS Black Series. That's fine, because remember, I took away the RQ80 Aero, Morgan Aero, and I think that a lot of people can agree the SLS Black Series is a better car than that stupid Aero anyway, so it is a small upgrade even though it is only RQ80, but I am adding a lot more enticing. Instead of having stupid mid-range Gallardos that will have no say in any future event, why don't we add some cars that people would want to unpack? Think about the player's hutch, right? So adding the Centenario, the Aventador, this bolsters the reputation of Lamborghini in this challenge. Add some more Mercedeses, the AMG GT, one of the best saloons in the game. Give people what they want. Honda NSX as well, you know, like another new Japanese legendary. It's new because it used to be American, but now it's Japanese. So, you know, all these little things kind of add to servicing the pack. So this is what I think my entire vision of an improved, immortalized in carbon fiber would look like. And I think it is a lot more enticing now. I see a lot more cars that players would want to unpack in all the ranks. When it comes to epics, I can see people wishing for those Aston Martins, for some of those Mercedes, higher end Mercedeses at least. And of course, you know, we're keeping the positives. It's not to say that, you know, the original carbon, immortalizing carbon pack was horrible. It was, but there were some good parts to it. The good parts I decided to keep, like the Prototipo, the Opel Adam, the Alfa Romeo Quadrifoglios. All those cars are really good, and I'm gonna keep it there, okay? And, you know, I'm also keeping some pretty bad ones, like the Lotus Sprint 220, you know, nobody really wants that. Some of the Morgans are really crap. The Lotus Elise 111R is pretty bad. There are still some bad legendaries like the Gallardo, the SLS. I mean, it's, you know, that's up to opinion, right? So, you know, I think it's just a lot more balance. This is what you would expect from a challenge that does well. You need a challenge that services the challenge and services the player. You need to find a balance of making an enjoyable challenge that is fun for, you know, Hutch's money, you know, your revenue. You want people to open your packs, but also for the player, so they can have a chance at getting the cars that they want, but also not making the challenge feel redundant by using nothing but just what, four-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive performance tire cars. Like, at least with this, I can utilize, you know, more all-surface tire representation. And again, one thing, I did not add any standard tires. Did you realize that? I added 0 standard tires. Why? Not because I'm saying that, oh, I'm not versatile enough. You gotta use it smart, in a smart way. I'm not adding standard tire cars because I want to service four-wheel drive. I want rain in the challenge, and I want the four-wheel drives to be highlighted. This is their time to shine. There are no standard tire cars that is going to blow them out the water. So now it's time to use those four-wheel drive tire cars, like the Mercedes-Benz R63, like you know, the Lamborghini Gallardos, even the Mini John Cooper Works, the Maserati Ghibli, the Mercedes AMG. This is time for those cars to shine. Okay, so yes, in my opinion, this is my version of immortalized in carbon. Let me know down in the comments below, which pack would you rather open? Hutch's version that's actually in the game, or mine? Personally, I think my version looks a lot better, but let me know down in the comments below. But like I said, I've been doing a lot of negative videos, so, you know, hopefully this one's a little bit more positive. Instead of telling you that you're crap, at least now I'm telling you what you can do better. But you're still crap though. But anyway, and that's me talking to you, person designing the challenges at Hutch, at Top Drives. Yeah, you're crap. Anyway, hope you guys have a great day. Remember to stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back, relax.